So if I showed you this quilt block, you probably would think, hey, that's looks like that's super complicated and I have to fiddle with a bunch of little pieces like that little one on the edge, but I'm here to tell you that it's not that difficult. And this is not nearly as hard as you think, but in today's video I'm going to show you how to make quilt blocks like this. I think that this one might be called a fading 9 block versus a disappearing 9 block. I'm really not sure about that because I don't know the names of most things. But anyway, in today's video, I'm going to teach you how to do this the easy peasy way. So let's go. All right, so for this particular quilt block, you're going to need 9 pieces of fabric. I just have some scraps that I pulled out of my scrap bin because literally there's quilting scraps everywhere all the time all at once. But I pulled out 9 pieces of fabric that I thought coordinated pretty well together, and I laid them out on my table just to see what kind of pattern that I wanted to go for. And I did play around with the pattern quite a few times, but my squares ended up being 3 inches by 3 inches square. And you're going to need 9 of them because this quilt block is going to start out being a basic 9 patch, and then we're going to make it all fancified. But go ahead and mess with the pattern and make sure that you like how it looks. Now, some of the patterns that I've seen actually have the darker squares on the outer corners and in the center, but hey, you do you. Do what you want to do because, hey, this is your block and nobody else's. And you can see here, like I said, it's 3 inches by 3 inches square on those blocks. Now we're going to get to the part of the video where I adjusted it to zoom in and then I forgot to adjust the zoom out. So it is blurry for like a minute and a half. I apologize about that. I will be more conscientious of that in the future. Now, one thing that I do want to note is when you attach your pieces together, you're going to lose 1/4 of an inch on both sides. So you can make this block any size that you want, but just make sure that you account that you are going to lose 1/4 inch on each side of that. So 1/4 inch times 2 is going to be a 1/2 inch. And I'll show you the measurements once I get done. There's a lot of factors that do factor in to your size of your block, also like the seam that you make and things like that. But the way that we're going to attach these squares is we're going to fold over this first row and we're just going to sew a 1/4 inch seam all the way down. And then once we get all of those sewn, we're going to come back, we're going to open it up, and we're going to attach the third one. And then we'll attach our rows and everything will make sense in a minute. But this is kind of how it's going to look whenever it gets done. It's going to have that 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then once you get your rows, you're going to fold over your rows once we iron everything. And yeah, like I said, it'll all make sense in a moment once I get everything sewn together. So what we're going to do is we're going to take those first 2 pieces of each row and I'm going to go to my sewing machine and I'm going to do a 1/4 inch seam all the way down. And finally, I figured out that, oh, my camera is out of focus, so maybe I should fix that. But yeah, so we're going to get our clips and attach everything together. You can also use pins if that's what you have, but I'm just a fan of the clips because they're just easy to do. Now I have my leader attached to my piece and I just cut that off because I don't need that anymore. But you can see that these two are now sewn and nicely attached. And on my sewing machine, I use a 2.5 stitch length because that's what I always use for like everything. So now we're going to take our third piece right there and we're going to attach it, and then we'll go back to our sewing machine and we'll do the exact same thing and then show you what that looks like in a minute. Now, once you've got your third piece of each row attached, this is what it's going to look like. So everything is connected. Instead of having to do a whole bunch of cutting and fiddling with things, this is the easy mode way of doing a block. And this is basically, if I'm having to chain piece a whole bunch of pieces together for something, this is my preferred way. So now what we're going to do is you're going to fold each one of the rows over, but first we're going to give it a good press. Now, one thing I do want to say is that the cord that's over by my left hand, that goes to my mouse, and I don't know why I didn't move it. I guess I was just so focused on doing the quilt block. But yeah, it pretty much stays the entire video, so sorry not sorry for not moving it. I was in teaching mode. Now on your seams, there's two different ways that you can iron this open. You can do what I recently learned is called a butterfly seam. I was unaware that that's what it's called. I've always just called it pressing your seams open. But apparently that's called a butterfly seam. You can comment down below if you've ever heard that before or if I'm calling it the wrong thing. Now, the other alternative is that you can actually press your seams in opposite directions, and that is the choice that I chose for this. And you will see the outcome of my decision in a minute. You know, there's always some sort of little thing, some sort of little quirky thing that happens with all of my sewing projects, but you know, that's why I call myself intermediate. When you press your seams in the opposite directions, I'm going to zoom in and show you what you are to achieve by doing this. Now see, you can kind of just nest those little corners right inside of each other so that you have your perfect little corners. That is the optimal goal for pressing your seams like this. But as we shall see in just a moment, sometimes even after you do all of this, it may not be as perfect as you want it. But again, it is your quilt and you do whatever you want to do. So I've got the first one clipped and then we're folding over the other one. And I believe where I got into trouble with the nesting of my seams is I think I was trying to rush, and that's something that I really am working on with my sewing projects. Is I'm trying to just take my time and know that it's not a freaking like sprint to get these done, especially for tutorials. Like I don't even have any like goals per se. I'm just like sewing for the fun of it. So I need to just really slow down. But here we're going to go back to the sewing machine and we're going to sew those rows together, and I will give you a close-up of what happens even though I was trying my best to nest them. Okay, so you can see on this, like I've got this one little flap right here where I sewed it the wrong way. You know, there's no harm, no foul in that. That's what seam rippers are for. They are for little mistakes like that. And I just get in there and it was only a couple like stitches that I had to rip, so it wasn't too bad, but I wanted to go ahead and sew that back down just to make sure everything was secure. Okay, so now I take a look at my seams here, and you can see that even though I nested those, they still got off. It wasn't by like a whole lot, but this one is perfect. Yeah, that is what happens in the life of being a sewist. So, you know, it's fine. But now we are just going to give everything a nice press. We just want to make sure that everything's nice and flat. Once you get those seams done, you have your basic 9 patch. And this is just a fun like beginner block, but there are some little tricks and tidbits that we can do to jazz it up, matazz it up. So this is what we're going to do now. Now that we have everything pressed, you're going to measure what your block is now. So the way that I attached all my seams, my block here ended up being 7 3/4 or 7.75 inches by 7.75 inches. So it was pretty square. I actually was surprised by that. But that is what mine ended up being because I lost that. I lost the measurement with the seams, and there was my seam ripper. Apparently, wanted to just get to rolling for whatever reason. But yeah, so that is the measurement for my block. And on this, what you're going to do is you're going to find the midpoint of whatever size your block is. So say that it ends up to where it's 8 inches by 8 inches. Then you're going to find the midway point of that block, which would be 4 inches. Now, this is going to probably be the scary part, and I promise it's going to feel like, "Oh my gosh, what am I doing?" But if you've got your measurements right, I say go for it. So I got everything lined up and I laid everything down and I took my rotary cutter and just went right down the middle. I used my small one because I have more control with that one. So now you've got two pieces that look like this. And now wherever your mark is, you're going to line everything up and you're going to go ahead and cut it in half the other direction. Again, it's going to feel scarier than it is. But now, when you take everything apart, look at that. And you didn't have to fiddle with a whole bunch of like small pieces because nobody has time for that. But now you've got 4 new pieces that you can turn into something else. You can just do a little switcheroo. Turn it like that, turn it like that. You can do all sorts of different orientations for your block. And this is what I decided to do because I liked the way that it looked. Now, once you get a result that you enjoy, we're going to go ahead and do the same method that we did before with the 9 patches. Is we're going to take it to the machine and we're just going to sew everything together. We're going to go ahead and give it one more good press. Whenever you have this many seams, what I like to do is the fabric is kind of going to tell you where it wants to lay. So I just kind of go with what works. If you feel like that you want to do the butterfly opening, then that's fine. But me, like I said, the seams are going to kind of tell you where they want to be. So I just roll with that and just kind of give everything a good press and get it nice and flat because that is good sewing hygiene, I believe is the word that they say for that. And there you go. Once you get everything pressed and together, you have you a very unique block from something that was not that scary. See, that turned out pretty darn cute, if I say so myself. And now you can use this block in a quilt, or you can make a pouch, or you can make a tote bag, or you could do whatever you want. I just really, really like the way that this looked and how easily that it came together. But yeah, there is your block. Now you've got you a fun little block that you can apply to all your scraps and just have fun with it. Thanks for watching.